WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. We Should Know is on the air each and every Tuesday at 2:30. Coming to you from Star Communications, Channel 16, WCLN Radio, and of course there's a summation in the Sampson Weekly newspaper. I want to thank you for your comments from our show last week. The Colonel with the North Carolina Highway Patrol, Colonel Glenn McNeil Jr. was with us, and of course First Sergeant Mike Baker. And we talked about a number of issues related to the Highway Patrol and things that they're looking for and input from you. And thank you for your comments on that. And continue to send us your emails and suggestions to weshouldknow@edu@gmail.com. weshouldknow@edu@gmail.com. Today we're fortunate to have with us the Honorable Vice Chair of the Sampson County Board of Commissioners, Ms. Sue Lee. So thank you so much for taking your time to come in and be with us today on what I've got to know is a tremendous schedule.
Thank you very much for having me. I think it's going to be a good day.
I want to kind of kick this in gear today to talk a little bit about the reality that you're in your second term, and you've won that seat both times, but you've won a seat that has actually been a first in two ways. One, first female commissioner. Second, you're the first female that has been vice chair of the Board of Commissioners. Tell us how that plays out for you. How do you look at that seems to be somewhat different from maybe your male counterparts?
Well, while it's not lost on me that I'm the first female, it really isn't that big of an issue. I bring a little bit of a different perspective, but I tend to be a little bit tough. The four guys have treated me as an equal. There has been no discrimination, female discrimination at all. But I think behind the scenes, their nickname for me is Tightwad. Mm-hmm. I'm very conservative physically, and I think they understand that. And while being a female gives me more emotion sometimes, I tend to stick to how I believe things should be run.
Mm-hmm. Does that conservative thread in you come from the fact that you and your family run a very successful business? Does it come in your earlier years in life as you've grown up, or is this something that you look at your conservatism more as a lifestyle thing?
All three. I was raised to be very conservative. My mother always told me a penny saved is a penny earned. As far as back as third grade, I can remember doing a revenue and receipts journal. I would keep up with the money that I came in, categorize it. Was it spending money, or was it money I earned? And then I would categorize it as I spent it. Was it for toys? Was it for books? As I grew older and my husband and I started a business, I've always been in charge of the financial end of it. And sometimes I have had to work really hard to stretch the money, and I just think you have to be very, very careful with the money. And we just have a very conservative lifestyle with that.
Now, you and your husband, Tart, run a business. It's 40 plus minus years old. It's been very successful here in the area. Employ about 40 people. Mm-hmm. Tell us, what do you bring as a successful business person that maybe you can transcend some of that to government? Because people kind of see the public and private sector as completely two dissected organizations, but they have to come together at some point in time, correct?
Correct. In government, a lot of people feel like there's an endless pot of gold, of money that you can spend. Mm-hmm. Our commissioner board tries to approach it as this running like a business. All five of us are business-minded, I believe, and we know that there is a limited source of funds, a limited way to get funds, and we don't, when we prepare the budget or when we're looking at spending money, we don't look at it like this is a government with lots of money. We consider what we have and work from that.
The dynamic when we're looking at Sampson County, particularly now, we can look back just in 2018, but let's step back, say, a couple more years, and we recall a visitor that we had by the name of Matthew that was not very kind to us. This past year, we had a visitor called Florence that brought a partner later on called Michael that did a lot of destruction with water and flooding and that kind of thing. How does that upset the apple cart, as it were, for county government and for the governance piece that you guys look at?
Well, as always, when you have surprises, that's something difficult to deal with. But while we're on that subject, let me bring up how proud I am of our county employees. On the day that Florence was about to hit, I visited all the shelters that were set up in Sampson County. We went to all 9. They were, with all the chaos, with all the confusion, with all the fear on our citizens' faces, they were running like a charm. Our employees are having to leave their homes, leave their families, leave their property, and look after our people, and they were doing a fantastic job.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because the county manager, Ed Causey, echoed that as well on this show. Not only the dedication, but there was actually times I think that he almost had to try to force people to just back off for a while and look after their own needs, because they were just running out of physical and mental gas, if you will. So how do you maintain that? And when you think about the dynamic of the workload that brings on, and also with the frequency of these things, there's so many different pieces when we look at the floods and the hurricanes we've had, when we look at the infrastructure impact, when we look at the impact on county employees, when we look at all of it with agriculture. What can we do? Do you see something that we need to be preparing for that we're not? Give us kind of Sue Lee's prescription, if you will, going forward.
Well, back on the shelter issue, as well as we did it, we're redoing our whole emergency response plan. We're trying to interview all the people that worked, interview some of the people that were affected by the storm, see what we can do better next time. You always have to mind with your budget that you have to take care of these things. You have to have money set aside that's for Sampson to look after their people until federal resources are available. And I think we've done an excellent job. Not patting ourselves on the back, but our staff has done an excellent job in having us ready for these things. Our emergency management was on top of things. I visited out there several times. Everything was running like clockwork.
I was in doing some superficial research kind of for talking with you today. I was kind of, I guess, impressed in the sense that you have, since your tenure as Commissioner, you've been in the presence of the Vice President of the United States, and you've been in the presence of a number of folks that you consider notable people, and one of those would be Secretary of Energy Rick Perry, who used to be the Governor of Texas. Also, you've been very involved in the NAACP and working with them and their forums. And the two things that struck me was two groups of people that was right in there at the top of that list, and one of them was a picture of you and this guy, which happens to be your husband,
Correct.
And one of this beautiful family right here that happens to be your family. Sue, one of the things I recall reading the very first time before you decided to run is that family has always been and continues to be first.
Absolutely.
How do you talk to us about how you work that in? Because I can only imagine the schedule you've got. How has it worked for you so far to try to make sure you keep them, and I'll use this phrase, at the dinner table with you?
Well, they're my first priority, and when I was asked to run for the position, I had one request. I said, my family will come first, and that was understood, and Tart and I discussed it. We have been married 47 years, and we discussed everything, and he said, if you want to do this, I will back you up, and the things that you can't do with the family, I'll try to take your place. And a lot of organization, a lot of Tart helping, a good calendar, and just a lot of prayer. And my family's been really understanding, but so supportive, and they are my everything. They are absolutely my everything. It
is, and the reason I asked that question and to try to get into this, I want folks to kind of understand that it's a tremendous ask for people to step up and be in these kinds of positions. It is just so tremendous. And as I looked at some of the places you've been and those kinds of things, I also looked at it from the sense of knowing a little bit about who you are. And this is really an effort for you to do that. Sustain and maintain a successful business. Be close to and assured with your family and your family relationship, but yet you're in all these other places too. That's a lot of the public to ask of one individual. Would you agree?
It is. It is.
And you can't say that, I don't reckon, because it would come across a little wrong, but I can, and I just want to try to get that out. Folks need to respect a lot of what these people like you and others do for us.
A neighbor mentioned to me last night, I don't know how in the world you do all this. So she said, I would have lost my mind. How do you do this? But again, scheduling, a lot of prayer, a lot of love with my family and for my family, and their love back to me, and a desire to make the world a better place. I'd like for everybody to have a good place in Sampson County. And the county is very important to me. The first time we got married, we moved to Raleigh, and I was very unhappy. I wanted to come home. I love Sampson County. When we got to 242 and crossed the county line, I asked my husband to stop the car, and I got out and I actually kissed the ground. Really? I love Sampson County, and I want it to be a better place, and I want to do my part.
And it seems to me that where I have seen you and the places that you've been is kind of literally in every segment of the community and government and business and social functions and other. You are there to not only represent, but as somebody said, you're a good listener as well.
I try to listen. It's more important to hear what the person wants to tell me than what I need to tell them. I like to listen, think about it, see how I can help, love people. There's nobody I don't love.
What if anything, would you say when it first became a possibility for District 3 to maybe something you wanted to run for as commissioner, what was one of the first things you mentioned? Family. Is there other things that come to mind as you debated that issue? Because I know you spent quite some time thinking about that.
I did. Well, when I was first asked, I said, I will think about it and I'll pray about it. I said, I need to really pray hard about this. But when I hung up the phone, I said, there's no way in the world I would ever do that. Mm-hmm. But after, I thought, well, you promised you'd pray, so I did pray. Mm-hmm. And I did a lot of thinking. In fact, I kept waiting so long, I was told that you got to hurry up and make a decision. But I wanted it to be the best for everybody. If I make a commitment, it's going to be everything I've got, and I've got to be sure that I can do my best and give my best. So I talked to a lot of people, asked lots of questions. I wanted to see what the total picture was going to be. And after I kept praying, I just kept bumping back to the thing, you need to do this. Mm-hmm. And I ran against a very good opponent, Willie Bowden, but I won with 92% of the vote, which was a huge blessing to me that I had that sort of support. And Willie Bowden ran against me last election. I won with 52% of the vote, so I was very happy with that.
We're going to take our first break, and we'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with the Vice Chair of the Commissioners right here in Sampson County, Sue Lee. We're talking about issues facing her district and this county. We'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. If you hear a little bit of raspiness in the speaker or your TV, it is not your TV. It's actually my voice is breaking up a little bit, so apologize for that. But the weather as it is, maybe in a couple of days, that will take care of itself. We're fortunate to have with us today on We Should Know Ms. Sue Lee, who is the Vice Chair of the Sampson County Board of Commissioners. And again, Sue, I want to thank you for being here. We've been talking about a number of issues. We talked a little bit about your background and your aspiration for getting in a job. But one of the things that I noticed as well that you're very proud of is the support for the students in Sampson County. Mm-hmm. Education is a big issue for you. Absolutely. How are we doing in that area from the seat you sat in and looking at it from what student needs are? Could we do a better job? Are there things that is greatly needed that you would like to speak to? What's going on in the world of education?
I think both of our school systems are doing a great job, but there's always room for improvement. And the good thing on that is that they are working toward improvement. Since I've been in office, we have increased our per pupil investment by 22%. We're still not where the larger counties are like Wake and Mecklenburg, but we're working hard toward that. And of course we have budget restrictions, but schools and our students are a huge priority. We really care what happens for them. We want them to have what they need to join the students from other counties when they go to four-year college after, if that's what they choose to do. But education is very important.
One of the things that I will talk about if we have time to get to it, and we might not, obviously these shows goes fast, but education is a big piece of the state budget. It's a huge piece of local government and local budgets. There seems to be this kind of trade-off of expectation between what the state should supply and what the counties should supply. Both of those fund sources is from taxpayers, i.e. the people that you represent. How do you balance that when you look at capital outlay needs for public schools in this county? And I mean, I'm sure you're aware of some of the schools we have, Hopton, for example, and Hargrove, some of the oldest schools in the county, and continuing to need repairs and updates and those kinds of things. What do you look at?
We're trying our best to put aside money for those. We like to be proactive instead of reactive. When the county's schools need fixed assets repaired, that's where we're headed now, having the money ready. And when you think about it, we can't raise taxes. When things go up, we can't raise revenue. We can't go up and raise our prices to gain any revenue. Our greatest source of income are our property taxes, and those come from our citizens, and we're very cognizant that we have to keep those at a steady rate. So it's a huge balancing act, trying to get the most for our money to do what we need to do for the schools without taxing our citizens more on our property taxes.
One of the things that I've noticed for the past 2 or 3 years as I've looked at the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, in their kind of proclamation goals, if you will, to the legislature. And one of those has always been to try to cut out this potential for lawsuits from local school boards. Is that anything we've had an issue with here in this county? And where is that coming from? Is there a kind of a tendency to get a little too pushy and shovey between the school boards and the commissioners?
I think there are, but we all work really well together, believe it or not. One of my most enlightening times during the year, during the budget process, are when the 2 school boards come in and give us a listing of what they would like and what they need for the year and give us a chance to go through that. And at the same time, it's very heartbreaking because there's so many needs and so little capital. But we really do work well with our school boards, and I think they do a tremendous job of taking the monies that they have and making the best use of it.
You know, and you can ride around Sampson County, some of our newest high schools at Midway, down in the Union area, and of course Lakewood, and then you get up in the Hopton district. Is there an interest, or would there be an interest in a bond referendum for capital outlay for schools in Sampson County, not only for new schools, but to fix stuff that needs to be fixed at some of the existing schools?
We haven't discussed anything like that at this time.
Now, because I know that's come up in several conversations, and it's a piece that has spun out and it comes back, and it'll spin out and come back. Is that something you just don't think the public would have the taste for now?
Probably not, and we're working really hard at reducing our debt and trying. In fact, last year we were able to redo all of our debt, and we saved nearly $19 million in interest without extending the life of our loans. And these are the kind of things that we want to do so we'll have more money to access to use for education and the important things. But I thought that was huge, and in doing so we were able to reduce the amount we had to pay for insurance on the rest of our liabilities. And normally it would have been thousands of dollars for the insurance. It was negligible what we had to pay. So we're all the time working to see how we can get more money to do the things we need to do, especially for our school systems.
How do you see technology and the availability of technology as part of our infrastructure, the demand for that being part of the future driving force of education?
I think technology is going to be grand. Excuse me. I think that's going to reduce the need for more brick and mortar buildings. I think that a lot of children are going to be able to take online classes, especially at the higher grade levels. They're going to be able to do a lot through technology, and we won't require all the brick and mortar.
With that said, the connectivity that's needed in the county could easily be some projections up to $18, $20 million to get the necessary fiber or what have you in the ground. Is that unrealistic, and would that be considered also an infrastructure need that you would support going forward, even with state funds or federal funds?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And lots of times there are grants and things that we are able to access that help so much. And we're working real hard on our infrastructure with our water. We're hoping to grow the water usage in Sampson County and to be able to, excuse me, to sell to other municipalities and have a source of revenue to be able to fund these other things that we need to do.
The sources of revenue that we look at, and you mentioned one, I think, the interesting pieces of this that folks I'm sure understands, but I'd love to touch on, is there seems to be kind of a pretty much a set piece of revenue generation, and that is property or ad valorem taxes. those folks that seem to be hit the hardest, I guess, is the people with the higher numbers. Right. And a lot of those folks are business people or what I consider our agribusiness community, which could be as much as $15, $20 million in just one small operation.
Right, right.
So we got you some water if you want.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Have a sip there, because whatever this congestion thing is something that's going around. We're going to deal with that going forward. Okay. But I think that's the piece I look at, is that we look at our community and county leaders as dealing with an issue, and you'll hear the word oftentimes in conversation. I guess I hear it more than you do, because people tend to come up and tell me things more, but they'll say, well, we just got to demand this, we got to demand that. But really, you got to have a financial stream. You have, as far as a commissioner, to say, well, we can pull it from that financial stream, or we can pull it from this financial stream, because if you don't, something else is going to go like it.
Absolutely.
So help us understand how we develop or broaden those financial streams to accomplish these things that we want to.
Well, as again, we're trying to expand our water infrastructure. We're always looking toward economic development. We have started a fund for that with our last budget, so that we'll be able to procure new businesses to come to Sampson County that will contribute to our base, our tax base. Sampson County is never going to get a huge industry. We basically don't have the land or the population to supply as employees, but there are areas I think that we can reach forward, and we're really working hard. That's one of the avenues we're into now, economic development, trying to bring more businesses to Sampson County.
I know I've had John Swope on the show a number of times, and you know, I'll give a shout out to John. He's constantly looking at opportunities. He's constantly searching the horizon. And I guess he's sifting through that sandbox, if it will, of things that will fit in this area. Sometimes you'll see something that will come on the horizon, and we've all seen it, and it hits the local media, and there's huge pushback. When I say huge pushback, 30 or 40 people or what have you will push back on it because, quote, they don't particularly want that in a particular community. How does that set, and how do you navigate that kind of pond, if you will, because you have an opportunity for maybe 50 to 200 jobs, and then all of a sudden, well, the community don't particularly like it here, and as you just said, you got to put it somewhere, and then all of a sudden it goes away. Is that really troubling to you? It
is, and you have to look at it from the big picture. You have to look at the people that own the property, and that's their right, and next to them, but you have to look at also what it's going to bring to Sampson County. You have to, are you infringing on their rights, or are we doing something that's for the better, for the greater good for the whole community? You have to just really do a lot of your homework, see how it really will affect them. A lot of people are misinformed and think that things are going to be worse than they are. And a lot of times when you talk to them, they're receptive, but you just have to do a good navigation job and find out, is it really as offensive, and will it be as offensive to them should it come to fruition, or is this just a scare that they really don't have to worry about anything?
We're still kind of under the umbrella of infrastructure now as in the conversation we're having. So I want to toss in something that you mentioned a while ago, which is 24, and the NC 24 project. I won't get into the congestion in front of Walmart by any means, because I know that's a hot button for a lot of people. But when we look at that and what it means to this county, from where you sit, from a business person, as well as the Vice Chair of the Sampson County Commissioners, how important is that going to be for Sampson County, and what do you see the future impact?
I think it's very important for Sampson County. As a business person, you need to be able to get your goods, your material in to make your goods and get it out. During Florence, we didn't ship for 5 days because truckers couldn't get in. That was very scary for me as a business person. That had never happened in the 40-some years that we've been in business. When we have more availability, that the people can get in, that the trucks can get in, when we have these nice roads coming in, that is going to be huge for being able to grow Sampson County.
The asset part of that highway and the connectivity futuristically also ties us closer to the Jacksonville area and that kind of thing. So once we get this piece, the next piece is going to be critical.
Absolutely, absolutely. As I understand, it's not funded at this point, but I think that's something that we need to work hard on and talk with our legislators. We need to go forward. And
at least get it on that TIP, that Transportation Improvement Plan.
Absolutely.
We're going to take our second break. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with the Vice Chair of the Sampson County Board of Commissioners, Sue Lee. We'll be back in a moment. Call a friend, stay tuned. We're talking about key issues and subjects that affect your life each and every day. We'll be back in a moment.
You come out to replace a bad sensor, and that adds a 5-year commitment to my contract, and you don't tell me? Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping homes secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody trying to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. Kind of midway this show, We Should Know is on the air each and every Tuesday at 2:30. Want to remind you that we're also not only Star Communications Channel 6, WCLN Radio, also you can go to mixler.com/oldies1170, pick us up on the air there on the Audible piece at 2:30 every Tuesday, each and every week. Believe it or not, been doing this for 8+ years now. So we've had the opportunity to have a lot of very knowledgeable folks in, a very, I guess, broad base of talent in the area. And at the top of that list is, of course, the Vice Chair, Sampson County Commissioner, Sue Lee. Sue, I just, again, want to thank you for your service. And when I say that, I want to just kind of hold up this 460-page, this is actually not 460 pages, but a sample of the 460-page budget that you are familiar with that is now, I guess as we look at 2019, you'll be looking at the conclusion of this and looking at this 2019-2020 budget that you guys will be coming out with in the next 6 months.
Correct.
This budget that I'm looking at now is the budget that not only you've operated with for the last 6 months, but that you will finish up with now for 6 more months. How has this budget worked for Sampson County to this point?
So far, so good. I've been very pleased. And it's a long, arduous process.
I can only imagine. I encourage people, you can go online and look at this. I don't know how many people looks at it, but it gives you a sense of the depth and the detail of what is done to craft this thing, much less administer it.
It all begins with budget workshops, and those are very hard for me. I don't like to sit still, believe it or not. 2 hours is about all I can handle if I don't get a break between that.
You want to get on the shop floor, right?
I want to move. But we sit there for 2 to 3 days in February. We've started planning our sessions for this year, and we have department heads come in and give us our budget request. That's the hardest part of being a commissioner for me, these 3 days. It is absolutely overwhelming, the need versus the availability of funds to cover it. And that's when you start parsing and making and we don't want to say priorities, but doing what we can to meet the needs of our people. But we sit there for 2 to 3 days and let everybody come in and tell us what the department heads tell us what they need, what they project for the coming year, look at what might be something we can put off for another year, our immediate needs. And that's really hard. And working on the budget, and we like to have it ready by the beginning of our fiscal year. We don't like to extend from last year and operate on last year's budget until we get it. So for the past, since I've been in office, we've been able to pass the budget every year on time. And I'm very proud of that.
And that has not always been the case.
No, it has not. It has not.
With that said, I want to make a comment and ask you to follow up on it as well. It seems that just looking from the peripheral at the commissioners, at the Board of Commissioners we have now, there seems to be a very homogeneous relationship in working together. Is that perception or is that reality?
It is extremely reality. All 5 of us work very well together. You don't have the political divide that you might assume. We all want what's best for Sampson County, and working off that basis, we're able to accomplish a lot from Sampson County.
That's good. That's good to know.
And we all have different opinions, of course, and we have different ways,
different backgrounds as well.
Ways that we want things to go. But we work well together, working for the common good for the county, and I'm proud of that.
When I look through this budget and I look at the various departments in county government, and I see the weightiness, and I'll use examples of weightiness one we just talked about, which is public education. Hugely weighted. But at the same time, I look at Department of Social Services and some of the needs there with everything, and that's both federal and state and local funds. Do you get to the position at times that it's hard to just say, well, how do we cut that when you're looking in the eyes of somebody you know that it's going to impact?
It is really hard. And given the Department of Social Services, we have so many unfunded mandates that we have to cover, that we are demanded by the federal and state government that we have to cover. That leaves very little for discretionary. And so you really have to work hard at it. And it is a tough job. And it's probably, like I said, the most depressing part we do, trying to fund what we need with little revenue.
And the revenue picture always comes up. One of the things that was also part of the last, I don't know what the new projected goals are going to be from the Association of County Commissioners here in North Carolina, but one of those, the last goals was trying to deal with the state to prevent the state from kind of taking some of the revenue and dumping it back in the sense that, for example, the state would love, it appears the state would love to have the counties look after roads. Yeah, the state would love to have counties do other. That was a piece that they wanted the legislature to look at and assure that county governments were able to do certain things with their own revenue base. What do you see that could be done to improve the revenue base for Sampson County, that for counties like Sampson, not just Sampson, but counties like Sampson that have somewhat of a limited cash flow because you can't get, IBM's not coming here, Amazon's not apparently, obviously. Right. BMW's not going to be able to plan here, so you're kind of limited. So how can we adjust the flow of money in generating revenue? Is that a creative thinking process, or is that a calculated thinking process?
A little bit of both. We're working on the infrastructure, hoping to be able to sell water to other municipalities, extend where we're servicing now and get more county people to sign on to the water project and help them. A lot of people would love to be on it. Again, we're trying to be very creative, getting new businesses to come to Sampson County. But at this point, our tax rate is as high or higher than all of our continuous counties, and we can't go much higher with our tax rate. That
hard to justify.
And I think all 5 of us are set on that we are not going to raise taxes. Somehow we're going to make the budget work and do what we can to meet our needs without raising taxes. That's a huge...
One of the things folks often mention when it comes to taxes, they'll toss the term out, sales tax. Well, why don't they do a half-a-cent sales tax? Then that is a more fair approach because everybody has to pay it. Where is that, and is that even realistic? Is that something?
I think it's a great idea, but we are limited by the state on what we can charge sales tax. They get to have the final say, and that has been an issue we've discussed. But the state gets to decide if we can add. It has to be approved by our state.
And it shows up quite often. You hear in conversations, you see it in the legislature, something will come up and it never gets out of committee or what have you. And those are the kind of things that creates, I guess, a sense, well, what are we going to do? We feel kind of boxed in.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit more. I want to, before we get away from the whole idea, I want to spin back to the hurricane issue. One of the things that has occurred as a result of that you're very well aware of is there's many of our rural roads in the county that have been impacted. And I realize we're fixing to talk about a state issue, but I know the commissioners also have direct input, and you guys meet regularly with our representatives, and I'm always trying to leverage that here at this table. But these roads are so critical to our agricultural base. Feed trucks, livestock, poultry trucks are constantly up and down these roads. And quite frankly, I've talked with a lot of folks with the Department of Transportation, and they'll look at me and say, well, our secondary roads were never designed for these 18-wheelers and those kinds of things. The comeback has always been, well, the 18-wheelers certainly pay enough taxes that they should have some consideration on that. Where does the commissioners fit not only in this discussion, but in this solution of improving the quality, not of just 701, 24, but the roads that get to these $2 and $3 and $4 and $5 million businesses that exist all over rural Sampson County?
We're doing a lot of lobbying with DOT, plus David Rouser in Washington, the congressman, has been contacted. For example, Ivanhoe was cut off during the hurricane.
Tragic.
That was a horrible thing. No one could even get to them by a car. So we have been working with North Carolina DOT, trying to see if we can get another access in there. Gerald Kivett has been, another commissioner, has worked really hard to get this done, and he's also talking with David Rouser's office. We reach out for every opportunity that we think we can, people that can help us. We work really hard trying to bring what our county needs.
I think one of the things that folks hear, and this is oftentimes where we try, if we can, to help as much as we can, educate or or be informative to the public is that they hear of the billions of dollars that is being pushed into eastern North Carolina, and it's greatly needed. It's a humanitarian effort, all of us agree, and we need that for everything from restructuring homes to communities that's devastated. With that huge amount of money, which seems to be a lot, is there a possibility some of that could be accessed to deal with some of the road issues and those kinds of things when we look at infrastructure needs?
I think so. And again, we have to look and prioritize, see where our needs are the greatest, but I agree the roads really, really, really need attention. I heard during the last hurricane that some of our hog farmers were having to fly the food in to get to their livestock because we didn't have road access. And we're working really hard to make sure that we have what we need in this county we can carry on.
Are there county committees within the departments in the county that has been developed to look specifically at those things, or is that just issues that the commissioners address in a general format?
There are several committees. TAG, Gerald Kivett is on that, working on road system work and how it will affect the county. I think they meet out of Fayetteville. I think it's a multi-county commitment, and there are several things. Again, we try every avenue we can. We look for grants if anything's available. Our staff is really good at sniffing out grants if there are grants out there to take care of these extra needs that we don't have, that we can't fund in our regular budget.
And this particular budget, when we look at the conclusion of this budget, just so we can give people a quick picture here, this budget will come to an end in July, and the county has, similar to the state, you have a demand for a balanced budget. So there's not a situation, it's kind of like your personal home. You might borrow some money on your home to add a room on, but you got a debt to pay. So if we're looking at an $18 million debt, and you've restructured that where it is pay off at the same time, and it's actually a lower rate, that's good news, it sounds like to me.
It's excellent, and it will flow down to our citizens, and that's what's so important, and it will make Sampson County a better place.
And back to the stability of employees, we'll talk a bit about the pay plan and how that's going into effect when we come back from this break. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. We're talking about a multitude of issues with the county with the Honorable Chairperson, Vice Chair, Sampson County Board of Commissioners, Sue Lee. Call a friend, stay tuned. We'll be back in 1 moment.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us. We're talking about county government today. We're talking about your tax dollars as it relates to services that you receive from Sampson County government. We're talking with someone that knows quite a bit about that sits at the governance table, and her name is Sue Lee. She is the Vice Chairperson for the Sampson County Board of Commissioners. 5 of you folks, Sue, and you sit there as the Vice Chair. This is actually your second time round because you were Vice Chair with Chairman Billy Lockamy, and you were Vice Chair now with Chairman Clark Wooten. The obvious question that has to be asked on the last segment is, when will it be Chairperson Sue Lee? You've been asked that before, so
yes,
it's not a shock.
I was nominated last time and I withdrew my name for consideration. That's not me. I like to work behind the scenes. I like being Vice Chair. I like support. I like to do support work, groundwork. I like for someone else to be out front.
Does it help too that gives you a little more flexibility, not to be kind of the head of the spear and get impacted?
Absolutely.
Give you a little more time with your family and your business.
Absolutely.
Very smart.
But it's always a pleasure to step in for Chairman Wooten, which, might I add, is an excellent chairperson. He's what Sampson County needs, and he's an excellent chairperson. He's in the spot he needs to be in.
Strong businessman.
Strong businessman, good ideas.
I think a lot of people is proud of Clark and Clark's dedication and effort in this county to do that. And again, I would say to the commissioners, and particularly to you and Clark, as both of you guys, for the investment you have made before you even got into politics. segueing from the campaign to the governance, and now we're in the governance, you're through with the campaigning piece. The governance part of this as you move forward, what do you see looking at this budget for 2019, 2020 as we finish up between now and July? What are some of the critical issues that you see that we haven't talked about here today? I want to give you an opportunity to hit on some of those things that maybe we've missed, because there's so many moving parts in local government that oftentimes folks don't particularly pick up on, or they don't understand. I've just tossed a few of those out to include infrastructure, from roads to connectivity with fiber to other kinds of things, schools, but there's so many other things on it.
It's just critical to look after our citizens. They have so many needs. Again, excuse me, again, we have citizens that have needs that aren't addressed generally. I had one come to me last week. They were living in an area and no trash was being picked up. It was in a trailer park. No trash was being picked up. The person that owned it had removed it. And the small issues like that total up, and they make a huge issue. But on the county as a whole, it's raising revenue and making the best use of what we have available for us.
I'm glad you mentioned trash, because I wanted to kind of go there, and I had a note, but we literally receive thousands of metric tons of trash in our Snow Hill facility here on a regular basis in Sampson County. Are you quite satisfied at the benefit of revenue that's generated from that for the county, or is that something that is looked at over time, and are you able as commissioners to budget or change the amount of money that the county receives for that trash that's being brought in from multiple counties?
We do have a contract with the company, and we look at it. That's a part of our budgeting process. We look at that. We evaluate the fairness. And segueing over to another issue, that we now have a county attorney full-time on our staff, and Joel Starling is doing a really good job at keeping abreast of everything on the legal level and studying it, looking at it, and seeing if we're where we need to be with that type of thing.
Good job on getting Joel, by the way.
He's been excellent. I've known him. I've seen him growing up in church his whole life. He played with our son growing up.
Very focused, dedicated.
But he is so good. He is so good, and he's on top of everything. And if
so, Joel, when you listen to this, you can buy Sue and I lunch one day. We're giving him so many kudos, right?
But he's really good at looking at our contracts and evaluating the fairness of, and if we're getting what we need. And if we want to be, not that we're selfish or greedy, but we want to be at the top of what the county needs and deserves all the time.
Yeah, and I think this trash thing has been going on for, I don't know how many years, but a lot of years, so it continues to grow. So the county looks at that revenue. I guess you guys look at it in the sense that are we getting not only what we're supplying, are we getting the revenue that other places that are offering these kinds of land mass areas, are we getting the same or marginal amount of revenue? How does that work? Is it based on population? Or?
I think they're doing a really good job of that. And the waste company is very receptive when we have an issue. If there's a complaint, they're really receptive to resolving whatever the issue is. And when you have a good working partner, that makes things a whole lot better.
And that's, when we get in the area of trash, in fact, I have a show I'm hoping to do sometime in the next year, or the coming year rather, that's going to be nothing but on trash, what to do with trash, what it means, the volume, because the tremendous numbers of trash is, just from the research I've done so far, is well in the hundreds of millions of tons, and it's unbelievable. So when we look at that, it's a whole nother issue, but for a county that has the land mass that Sampson does, you could look at it as a major resource, an advantage, or if it's not done properly, you could see it as probably something very disgusting if it ends up beside the road. So there's a control mechanism there, and how do you balance that?
Well, we stay on top of it. We really do. And the one I mentioned earlier was privately owned. It wasn't a result of the local trash company. It was privately owned, and the owner of the trailer park was not having it picked up. But we had someone come out from our planning department and our health department, and the issue was resolved. But it's the small issues like that we look at, and nothing is too unimportant for us to look at. You look at like the trash contracts and everything, that's very important, but it's also the local level. When a citizen has an issue, we want that resolved as well.
When you sit as county commissioner, and of course District 3 is your district, and I know you talk to a lot of folks there, Is there one particular item that is often brought to you from your constituency that you wrestle with, that you wish you could do more with, but you just don't find within the body of the commissioners or the ability of county funding to deal with? What would that be?
I think I have more concerns expressed to me about the issue of our animal welfare in Sampson County. Animals are loving things. We all love our animals. We hate to see, and I can't bear to see them mistreated. A lot of our people would like us to do better with the animal shelter, and I really think we do a good job. I think we do. There has to be euthanasia. It's just a fact. I don't go out because I would try to bring them all home with me. But I think we do a good job. But the passion of a lot of our citizens in my area is to do more for our animals.
That's interesting, and I'm not surprised because there seems to be and there's always been, I mean, I guess I've historically been a dog person, you know, you're cat people, dog people, and all this kind of thing, horse people, whatever, but there seems to be an overwhelming, on a national level, need or something for animals. And the elevation now, companies are becoming very financially wealthy just supplying animal need products.
Right.
Where do you think that's coming from? Is that in our need to find something to love that we can't find to love in human beings, or what?
I guess, and it would be great if we could extend that level of care to each animal, but it's just not practical. I find it a little disturbing, and I love animals. I love them as much as I love dogs.
We'll clear that
I love that. I love that. But it's amazing to me. I've never heard anyone mention how children are treated in the area. And that bothers me. We have a lot of children that have needs, and I've never heard anyone make a complaint about that. And that's a source of great discomfort to me, that children are not on the same elevation as animals are, and that's tough for me.
That's a little disturbing, and you see that a lot, and you can see it a lot, I mean, in some of our social media networks, and folks are really just elevated, well, look, this is my child, or this is my, and I get the fact that you can get close, close to your animal, because they are very important to you, but at the same time, if you've got a child that's hungry, or sitting in a cold room at night, and no mom and dad because of substance abuse issues or whatever it may be, you've got that, somehow we've lost perspective. And maybe I'm being too opinionated here.
No, that's how I feel, and I come across as hard and cold. And again, I love the animals, but there is a place for everything, and our children have to come first. Our children have to come first.
If you had the ability to look at our school system, both public and private in the county now, do you see a need for, the potential need for additional private schools? Do you see a need to expand our existing public schools? Do you see a need for preschool prep and training? Where do you see some of the things that, if you had that great win of about $300 billion, that you could put some somewhere, and where would you put that?
Oh wow, that is a dream. I would love to have the $3 billion.
That's kind of opening the curtain.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would get everybody together today, and we would start dishing. And throwing money is not the answer to everything. But if we had truly committed staff, people that we could bring in, start at the pre-K and kindergarten level and go right on up to the top. More resources. I'd like to see us get more tech savvy, because I think that's our future. There's just the possibility of that just makes me so excited. But it would be really good if we could put a lot of money in the education system, upgrade our facilities, just all kinds of things. That would be wonderful.
These are the kinds of dynamics that oftentimes when I'm speaking to either one of our superintendents, that we talk a lot about, and the technology piece is critical, and tablets come to play, and how do they get those tablets? So
that would be great.
We're kind of at the point of coming to a fast closure. This is always a fast show, and I knew it was going to be when I had you on. So is there any specific thing? I'll give you about 30 seconds here to wrap up.
We have like 30 advisory boards that are in the county that most people aren't aware of. If we have citizens that would like to serve on those, anything from animal welfare to health boards, visitor and travel, if you have a knack for doing something, if you'd like to volunteer, I'm responsible for getting someone to serve on all those boards. I would love to have you give me your name and number and put you on a board and get you working to make Sampson County a better place.
Absolutely, and you put them on one of those boards that they have a passion for as well.
Absolutely.
Madam Vice Chair, thank you for being with us today. We look forward to having you back. This table is always welcome to you. You have a seat.
Thank you very
Ladies and
much.
gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you next week on We Should Know. And
Thank
may
you for
God
tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.